I just want to bring up a couple of items beforehand. We have our exhibition coming up, and Women's Festival on the Common, where we naturally, and especially you, Vernon, now since we got you here, Vern, right? Vern, is it? Did I say it right?
No.
No?
You talking to me?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Myrna.
Myrna.
No.
I'm old. Please forgive
So
me.
am I.
No, please forgive me. If you're gonna be doing some watercolor paintings or whatever, I know you do fantastic watercolor, and oils or whatever the case may be, we have our exhibition coming up, Woburns Festival on the Common, where they close Woburn Common down. And it's a big festival of ice carving and food and entertainment, Santa Claus singing, and we're the smart ones, because it's the day after Thanksgiving to, well, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Saturday is our exhibition date, okay? And you can go to WoburNArtGuild.org to find out all the rules and everything that's inside there about exhibiting. But we're the ones who are in the First Congregational Church around the corner, where it's nice and warm. Okay. Plus we have free apple cider for all of everybody that's cold. Hot, what did I say? Oh, free hot apple cider.
Yes,
Thank you for helping me out. So it's a fun event and stuff like that. We want everybody to get your artwork ready, come on in, or just come and say hi to us and stuff like that. Enjoy the day. It's on Saturday. I think it's the 30th.
the exhibit is open at 3.
It opens at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It goes till 7 at night.
Oh.
But it's on the 30th, the day after, the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Friday night, if you're gonna bring anything in, get it in early, like within 2 weeks prior, or at least the application. Yeah, because we're gonna start charging you $10 extra if it's after the deadline date. So everybody's gonna have to remember that. We changed the rules this year. I was a nice guy, see, but now the president, he's a new guy, he doesn't like anybody, you know. So.
I'm trying to make it easier on us.
Yeah. It is true, because we're doing a lot of extra work on that. Mary does a ton of work with getting them all in. But still, we'd like, if you can, get it in early. Go to WoburNArtGuild.org and read the new rules that we have, because we did change the rules on it. It's a fun event, though, and it's enjoyable. And again, go to Woburns Festival on the Common. That alone is just a lot of fun, and a lot of things for the book community. What else can I bring up that we have coming up?
Next month, we do another demo.
Oh, we have next month's demo, which is Arnie Casaban.
Annie Casaban.
Yes, thank you, Mary. Next month in November, we have Arnie Casaban coming in. You know, every month we have a new artist coming in. Tonight, we have one of the best I've heard is Susan Kneeland.
No pressure.
No pressure, no pressure. But there's a lot of word about what nice work that she does. She's a nice person, I heard too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, thank you.
One of the best.
One of the best. Next to me almost, no? No?
Oh, I couldn't hold a candle to you.
Oh, I wouldn't, no, that hurts. Thank you. But Susan's going to be doing some nice stuff tonight. From what I understand, it is, let's see, is it colored pencil and what was that one on?
So I'm doing
Razor.
acrylic painting a street scene.
Yep.
I'm working on a road series. I have like different series, and I brought the road series. And I'll be using acrylics on Bainbridge illustration board, which is not a very common surface to work acrylics on. So acrylics aren't that popular from what I've noticed over the years.
Yeah.
And using them on illustration board is pretty much unheard of.
Yeah.
I brought the colored pencils. Sometimes I'll use the enhancement for small details, and sometimes not.
I've been dying to see this. Susan has her cards up here, also some things here. You do workshops and you teach also.
I do.
Yes.
I teach 26 private classes a week at my studio. I do art therapy at 4 nursing homes, and I lead en plein air workshops, and do demos and jury shows, and do art for a living.
Do I need to say more? Susan Kneeland.
But can she paint? Well, thank you for your introduction. I'm just about set up and we'll get started. I like to explain as I go. If you have questions, that's fine. I can talk and paint. I can talk and do anything.
So you don't prime the board?
No, this is just mat board, illustration board, and I'll once I get started, I'll explain to you what
See all of them?
what's going on with it all.
Being that, would you put on the glass after?
No, you don't have to, because it's a painting, so it's safe. So, and I did bring a frame. I'll clamp it into the frame when it's done. I may not complete it tonight. A lot of times when I'll get working, you know, an hour's good and then I wanna take a break, same as I would do at my studio when I'm creating, and just kind of regroup, and then I'd go back into it. Sometimes when I do demos, I've got small details that I really wanna work on later in my studio, and then I'll just send an image of the completed piece, to wherever I demonstrated, so that you can see, the end result. Sometimes I finish them, and sometimes they're pretty darn close to being finished. And I'll tell you a little bit about the board and how I acquired it and why I ended up on it. I just want to set these up. And I'll try to step out of the way so that if I'm blocking anybody, you'll be able to see. And I'll try to step aside from time to time.
Just as long as you don't get in my way, Susan.
I wouldn't dream of it.
Thank you, dear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, huh? It's amazing. One of the first questions I'm gonna have to ask you, Susan, though, is your palette. Like dual primary?
So I'll go over that.
Okay.
So, good evening, and thank you for having me tonight. I was looking forward to this all summer. As Joe mentioned, I do create art for a living, and represented by different galleries in the region. And I also am a designer. I designed a sculpture that was constructed, and it sits in Haverhill. It's very big. It's 12 feet tall. It's iron and steel. And I used the students of Whittier Votek School in their metal fab department to make it, so they got a part in beautifying the city of Haverhill. Tonight, like I said, I'm going to do the demo on illustration board. So illustration board is pretty much the same as mat board. It's really not made to get wet, but that's why I love it. I ended up probably about 6 years ago. Good friend had a frame shop, and she moved. She was going out of business. She moved. She downsized, and she asked me if I wanted her mats and all the files that they went in, and the whole setup.
Wow.
So of course I said, yeah, I have a frame shop in the back of my studio. So I took them, and what do you do with them? I mean, I can mat and frame my own work, and I do frame most of my own. And so I decided to start painting on them. I do teach painting on them too. Challenging, fun. I like the challenge of not knowing if something's gonna work and then finding out that it does. So my palette is a basic master palette, typically 2 reds, 2 blues, 2 yellows, white, and black. I do use black. I never use it alone because black absorbs light and appears flat. And white I don't use very often except for skies, because white also makes your colors muddy and dull. So I have warm and cool in each color. I brought a couple of additional colors in case I needed them. I brought a warm and cool yellow plus a yellow ochre. And right now I just have ultramarine and phthalo blue for my true blues. And I have the 2 siennas, raw and burnt sienna, ivory black, lamp black, titanium white, cadula light, lemon yellow, yellow ochre, alizarin crimson. This is Grumbacher red. It's a special red that I
Yeah.
love. Don't know if I'll use it today. Cad red light. The reason that I have a limited palette is because I teach, I want my students to understand color theory. And a great way to teach color theory is to put somebody in acrylics, because they figure out, okay, I make a particular green with, let's say they use phthalo blue and cad yellow. So they make that green and then they make a little bit of it and they go to use it again and it's dry. So they have to make it again and they have to make it again. Well, they don't know the beauty of oils, that you make it and it stays wet. So they have no basis of comparison. They keep making these colors and they memorize what they use. And so it's a nice, easy way to get someone to transition into oils. And I've found over the years that if I start people in oils, they feel as though they're digressing to work with acrylics. And they're a little tougher to work with, so some people just don't care for them. I love them, I work in them a lot. This is acrylic with colored pencil, so that's kind of like what I'll have tonight. That's an acrylic on a window shade. Acrylic pastel. This is a watercolor that I had printed on metal, aluminum. And then this is my information that I'll be working with tonight. So I took this photograph on an early ride with Danny, who's here with me, up the coast. And I've painted it before. I wanted something that was a shore bed. I have a lot of road photographs, and you know, I didn't feel like messing around with not knowing the piece. So without further ado, I'll get started. And please, if you have questions, ask them as I go. And if you have any now, go right ahead. I know I went fast through that list of colors, so. So I'm just gonna lay out a few of the brushes that I know I'll be wanting to use. I like to lay up my pieces with a hog hair brush and then eventually smooth them out with synthetic sable. My preference is fill bits, fill bits. So, the first thing that I will do is put my work into quarters and halves. So the first thing I'll do is quarter and half this image. I did a lot of painting with, when I was, like, I painted when I was young and did art. And then I got a diversion and had to put the art down. And I raised my family, and that was my diversion. I went back into art. And when I did, a lot of my friends were master artists, so I just go out painting with them. And, you know, you really, you know, learn a lot through observation. And I was just awarded master artist status last spring.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Is what you're doing now, you're thinking rule of thirds on that, or
Pardon?
are you thinking rule of thirds on that, the way you just?
No, so well, the first thing I do to translate an image is, if I'm not working on location, is put the piece into halves and quarters, and that into halves and quarters. That enables me to take a piece this big and make it as large as I want. I don't graph, because graphing really just teaches me to count, and I'm not good at that. And besides, you can't graph from life. So, so I've got halves and quarters, and that's gonna help me to translate this to the position that I want on it. I'm using yellow ochre. I chose pink because when I lay up the sky, some of the color from this will almost peek through, and it'll add a vibrancy to the sky. So sometimes I'll pre-prime a canvas with cad red light, and then wash it, like wipe it all down. So if I'm going out to paint en plein air, I've got the complementary color behind the sky as well as the land. And using the complementary color helps you get the vibrancy that you would want in your piece. Makes it look less flat. So that's my halves and quarters. And now I'm just gonna, generally speaking, translate where things are setting up on this piece.
So that also assists you with the formatting then?
Pardon?
That also assists you in the formatting, like for instance, those are two different formats.
Right,
That's more digital format and that's more of a square format.
yep.
So now you can translate that to the format that you're working in.
Well, you really should work size for size, and that's, I mean, what I mean by size for size is the proportions. You know, if I wanna do a 6x9, then the image should be cropped that way.
But that's a perfect way, what you're explaining to me, that's a perfect way of just changing the format to what you want it to be.
Yes.
And just take that, even though it's gonna change, it's perfect.
Yep.
So, thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm gonna use a very loose yellow ochre. I noticed that one of my houses starts just below the half. This one appears to be about the same height, and it's stopping right about there. And I'm using guide points to kind of lay up what I want. Sometimes roads are deceiving. Actually, all the time they're deceiving. It's telling me it ends there, and it's telling me that it's right about here. It comes on here, and I know that I need to go up to that point before it turns, which tells me it's here. So I'm gonna do a light drawing, just like this. And then I'm also gonna look at where this road comes on. This is coming out of this side. By the quarter, the road is halfway. So by the quarter, it's right there. Up I go. And generally speaking, for now, that's where the road will be. One of the great things that I really spout a lot in my classes is general to specific. Get what you think is right on the page, get as close as you can. It'll be wrong, and then spend the rest of your time fixing it. So, I find that a lot of people are reticent to make a mark because they think it's going to be wrong, and I'll say, well, yeah, it is going to be wrong. If you start out right from the get-go, well, kudos to you. But usually one of the things a new student wants to do is get that detail on there and get that favorite thing, like go right in and describe it. And what would happen is, yeah, they get that all described, and then they find out it doesn't really fit where they wanted it to fit. And then they lock into that, and the image becomes incorrect. So these are just my suggestions to myself of where my proportions need to be. And the tricky things about roads usually are those yellow lines. This summer I was doing a piece for an art auction, and I was working in this medium. And the last thing I laid on were the lines on that particular piece, and they were pretty tricky. So that's my layup. This is where, this is enough for me to kind of go, all right, I want to get in and start creating and working on it. And like I said, things may not be exactly where I think that they should be. As a matter of fact, I'm probably going to bring that road up a little bit more. I notice it's a little closer to the quarter, so we'll get that on there. And I work rather fast. I'm not a slow worker for the most part. So I'm gonna use a bright. One of the questions I was asked once when I was given a demo was, why do you use such small brushes? I think I was doing an 18 by 24, and I had never noticed that I did. So I had to think about it. I guess because to me, laying it up is kind of like drawing, and I like to fuss with the little things, and so that's why. The sky in this is pretty nondescript, so I'm gonna get creative and play with the sky. Knowing the season, it was summer, early morning, I'm gonna play a little bit with ultramarine for the upper layer of sky. Normally I'd tone the ultramarine down with orange, its complement, because that'd make it not so bright and keep that color a little less garish and a little more realistic. What I'm gonna do tonight is see if this will suffice doing the same thing without an underpainting. So I'm just going up with this. And what is really interesting about this working on this surface, it's not very cooperative. It doesn't really want water on it. It doesn't go in well. and, I really like that about it.
Does it buckle up on you?
Pardon?
Does it buckle up on you?
Nope, it doesn't buckle up, and I've never had it roll either. You know, you would think like, okay, if it's not a watercolor paper, would it start to roll like regular paper? Because it doesn't have cotton in it, but it doesn't. It takes quite a bit of abuse, but I also work a lot thinner, on this than I would on a canvas.
Mm.
I've been doing art a long time, and so when I get into a comfort zone, I like to challenge myself. Once I know the things that I can do, I want to find out what I might not be able to do,
That's always great.
and see how that goes. It's just I just am amazed how you could do art forever and just keep learning. So I'm laying this on. If you're watching it, it doesn't spread that great. I'm going down into a warmer blue. I'm using my phthalo. In the upper atmosphere, for those of you who may not paint outdoors, are up because of the way light reacts with gas molecules in the sky. The upper atmosphere is usually cool, going down to warm to the ground. So I'm using an ultramarine blue for my upper sky. I'll be switching to some phthalo, and I'll get a nice, hopefully a nice meshing and dance between the two of them. Back in and get some ultra, and I just want to get this transition, and I'm going to really go for a lot of light towards the bottom of the composition where the road is going to be, and they kind of go together nice. Sometimes I leave the strokes. I kind of like the look of that. Other times I might wipe them out a little bit. I'm going up now with just some white, and I'm going to use what's on my brush and white to get me down to the road level. I'm using a bright, and this particular brush I've had since I was 14. I haven't killed it yet. So it's my old favorite. And if you got up close to this, you'd be able to see that a lot of the pink is showing through. And that's where you're going to get that atmosphere. I didn't bring anything for underneath this. I wish I had. I'm going to get a little bit of a smoother brush, and just smooth this out a little bit and see if I like that translation. One of the things I like about art too is the unpredictability, how it's going to come out, what it's going to make you do to get it to come out. I don't know, I think it's just all thrilling. And if you look, you can see that pink showing through. And that's where it's really going to help it look more like a morning. I didn't have to struggle with it. I didn't have to maneuver it that much. But I'm just putting a little more white up in the sky. I don't like the strokes. I want a better transition. I want it to look a little more natural. So I changed the direction of my line making. And this is peeking out quite a bit. Every time I stroke this, it's almost lifting. And I kind of like that because the star of the show is the road, and if I amp up the light here, it's going to help the eye stay where direct the eye where I want it to be. And I want it really light down by the road. We want to start to talk about that early morning light. I do a lot of drives, a lot of photography. Not on my phone though. I don't like the way they come out once I print them. I develop them myself.
photo lab too?
Pardon?
You have a photo lab too?
No, but I have a really great printer. And I have a photo program from Hewlett Packard. It is free and it's accessible for all of us, and it's kind of like Photoshop for dummies. And it's HP, I think it's just called HP Professional. And if that's not the correct name, you can call HP's 800 number and ask them for it, and they'll actually help you download. And it's pretty nice because when I go to enter my work, say in a distant shop, say Arizona or Maine, and you have to enter by mail, they always want the pixels or the DPI, the dots per inch, to be 800. And so I used to have to take my work to the printer, pay a setup fee, which was usually $50 to $100, and then pay for the print, which is another 50 to 100, depending on who you use. And then each time you have it printed, it costs less because they've already done the back work. Well, I wanted a way around it. It's just too much. And if you're not, suppose you do that and you invest 200 and then the frame and then the time, and then it doesn't sell. It's like, well, all right, I can overlook some of that, but I didn't want to keep doing that. So I kept trying to change the properties in my camera and on the computer to get the pieces to translate into that 800 DPI, and I couldn't do it. And one day I got frustrated and called Hewlett Packard. They go, oh, we have a program. Let me get you in that and I'll walk you through it. It takes all your photography out of whatever you have it in. Like I use Picasa for my, to put my photos in. It'll take them all out, put them in, and it's called batch process. You hit batch process, they all turn to 800 DPIs. It's all done for you. So now I can enter shows and print my own work at the right resolution so that if they want to enlarge it or they want to print it, it's going to come out accurate. All right, I'm going to start kind of playing with the road a little bit here.
Susan, may I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
I just want to put this down before so that we don't get any contamination.
Over here.
Just be careful, don't slip on it. And put it where you want it. Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna put the road on. I'm going to use purple for the road. I see a lot of purple in it. I usually exaggerate the colors on my printer. I stretch them so that I can get exaggerated colors and then knock them backwards. When I look at the road in this image, it appears to be purple. Generally speaking, I'm just gonna go on, get some purple on. And build my base. I use a lot of thin paint to start. I've had so much fun with acrylics. It is my medium of choice. I've taken a lot of slack for it though. You know, my buddies are always teasing me, like, when are you gonna paint like a real person? Like, I love acrylic. And you know what? My acrylics sell just as well as an oil. People want a painting. Although I did have one man one time say to me, I love your painting, but I won't buy it because you don't put oils out. I thought, you really know the difference? Like, can you see the difference? But he had something in his mind about what was right and wrong.
Just tell them it's a painting.
You know what? I just nod and go, okay. All right.
What was that? That's Bainbridge board, you said, right?
It is.
Is that archival?
Yes, it is. Yes, it's acid free.
172.
So, what's that?
172 is archive.
Yep, it's archival. It's all acid free. So, yep, we've even got that covered. And it doesn't have to be Bainbridge. I say Bainbridge. This one may not be. I don't know if the name's on it. I don't think this one was, but it's basically mat board. Now my tricky part on this, the part that's always a little deceptive is, the lean of the road, the size of the road. And I'm gonna stretch it because of course I want it to hit that sky and I don't want that, my pre-draw of yellow ochre. So I'm just raising the road a bit.
When you're done, do you, like coat it with anything, or?
I don't, I just kinda let it be. This one I coated. I just took a spray can of acrylic clear spray and just sprayed the tar out of it. And this, again, this is on, illustration board. Oh, I think I've got something behind it. Yeah, I put, foam core behind it. Yeah, sometimes I spray them. This one had a little pastel in it too, and I knew I didn't want to put glass on it, so I sprayed it. It's a risk. I always hold my breath when I'm doing that. Deanna usually leaves the room. So the idea is to get the color of the paper gone so that I can better see the colors that I'm using. Next, I'm just going to lay up a general suggestion of the land. I'll be using cad yellow light, yellow ochre, and probably ultramarine because it's cool and cool colors recede. I also, I use my photography as a reference. I don't work verbatim. I kind of work with what I think will enhance the piece. And this is Route 1 up the coast, heading up to Rye. And I want this land to lay a little flat, and that's where I'll add white. White will flatten. It's gonna lighten it a bit, it's gonna flatten it. I'm using some burnt sienna here. Burnt sienna is a fugitive color that wants to escape. It's very thin, can be very annoying. I'll probably add some cad red to it just to get it to be a little more compliant.
You use just water with it, no extending, whatever you wanna call
Nope,
that?
just water, and a lot of it. You know, especially in the beginning when I'm first laying it up, because I wanna get it on thin. See it kind of warping? It does want to warp. But that's just because I'm using a lot of water. So generally speaking, I feel okay about how I've laid it up. Some detail back there I'm definitely gonna wanna play with. So I tried to bring something that had some detail, but not so much that it would be tedious or boring to watch.
Once you cover that completely with that light wash, it's gonna harden up and the water's not gonna be able to go through anyhow. So it ain't gonna buckle it later if you have that light wash on it. Cause it's all acrylic on
Kind
the
of.
top.
It's still gonna wanna, as you can see, it's still gonna wanna curl. I forgot to bring, usually I'll put a canvas board behind it and tape it right to it, and that way if it wants to shrink at all the way watercolor paper would,
Okay.
I can stop it. But I taught right up till before I left, and you know when you thought you packed everything? You know.
All the time.
Had a room full of artists, I think we had, yeah.
Yep.
I don't think I'm alone with that. I could be wrong. All right, I want to get some of the, I've laid it up enough so that when I squint through my eyelashes and I look at that, and I look at this, I feel pretty good about it. I deliberately dropped this down. It's actually higher than the picture. I dropped it down below the half. And I do still see a little bit of my marks showing through there. That's something I'd probably take care of after. I don't want to do a repaint on the sky, but I feel like it has a nice transition. And I really like, again, this unpredictability to this medium. I really like the way that happened tonight. And so I kept pushing at it, trying to get it to stay. Danny, do you have my glasses? Oh, I'm gonna get in, excuse me, I'm gonna get into some details. Thanks. Yeah, read is now. Okay. Oh, that's nice. So I'm gonna put the house in, I'm using a small brush, and I'm going to suggest the forms over here. Not really gonna, make them definite, I'm gonna just start with what I feel, that they look like. A little closer. I don't always do them exactly as I see them, I do them how they'll work in the piece. So, this one has a couple of gables, I'm not gonna deal with the gables, the viewer won't care that the gables aren't there. And the story is not about the houses, the house is the support system. The story's about the road. It's surprising how many people are attracted to road images, road art. I just made it because I love them, and just happened to work. And I'm sorry that I'm blocking some of you at this moment. But if I go to the side, it's gonna be crooked as a dickens.
I never thought to put a road in, I always do the houses.
Pardon me?
I always just do the houses, I never think to put the road in.
Oh, I love the roads. And then a lot of times, you'll see I put in I wanna capture our time, because at some point, they're gonna put all the wires underground. And I'm trying to record what we see, you know, these telephone poles and, you know, what's current, because eventually, especially these did such a great dance. This was up in Portsmouth. And they just kept meandering away. And I thought, oh, I love that chaos, you know, and I can picture 100 years from now, someone going, what the heck are those? They had those? Like, weren't they dangerous? We didn't know. You know, a smaller brush. I'm gonna kind of get some of the details on this house. And I do want, some detail. This house is far away, I'm not gonna want it totally clear, but I am gonna wanna describe it a little bit. And I'll put in some more. And these houses set up really nice.
Are you part of the New Hampshire Plan here?
I'm not,
The Mass Plan here?
where?
Massachusetts Plan here?
No,
I thought one of them.
just independent. I just go out on my own and do it.
Do you prefer being out and doing it, or you take more pictures and do it in house?
I've become more of a studio artist as the years have gone on. I used to do en plein air 4 days a week.
Okay.
And then I'd come home and I'd teach. I was young, I had that energy. Now I'm like,
Me too.
teaching's good.
Yeah, I know.
And I really like the comfort of, okay, it's hot out, I'm gonna put the AC on. But always for my own information and inspiration. I do have a lot of friends who go out, and different times, if it's nice out, I love to link up with them, but I teach mornings and I have a break and I teach afternoons, and I teach 6 days a week. So it doesn't leave me a lot of free time. My free time is Saturday afternoon and evening, and some of Sunday because that's family day. But I love teaching, so.
What town do you teach in, your classes?
Glasgow, New Hampshire. I moved up there when I was 20 years old, bought a house, and I'm still there. Same house. And I have a nice studio on the property. Danny fixed it all up nice and got that frame shop on the back, which was what a gift that was. I was really lucky early on, after I raised my family and went back into painting. They were these old women up the street from me. They ran a store, and they did yard sales. I don't do yard sales. I'm not a gatherer. And, they would go out and they would get tons of frames, and they'd call me and say, you know, we have a bunch of frames. And then I'd go up and they'd have a big box, and I'd go, well, how much do you want for them? And they'd say 20. I'd be like, how about 15? You know, kind of go back and forth. But I ended up with a lot of frames. And then over the years, many people who know, you know, that I have the studio, if they stop teaching, or much like the frame shop that closed, do you want frames? Do you want frames? Well, I kept saying yeah. And I probably have about 200 frames. I don't want to sell them. I intend to fill them all.
Yeah.
We'll just see about that. If I don't fill them all, somebody's gonna have to clean them out. I don't want that. I'm just kind of trying to play with these darks in here and give a little bit of atmosphere and depth to this over here. Encircle these. I'm looking to see, you know, mostly the colors and the shadows are warm. Right now I'm placing them up cool, and then I'm going to play with that and put a little bit of warmth in them. And I, you know, always try to remember what the story's about. One of the things that I, you know, preach a lot to my students is you got to know what you're trying to talk about. And I don't know if all of you are professionals. If you are, you know that. But early on, when I started teaching myself to paint en plein air, I remember one of the first times I went out, I was so excited, and I set up, and I was up at a farm, and I had a viewfinder, and I mapped out what I wanted, and as I began to paint, the clouds were beautiful, so I painted all the clouds. I stayed with them. And then I realized, like, oh, the distant trees are really nice. So I did all those. Then the field was nice. Well, the whole thing was supposed to be about a barn and a fence. And everything I came to, being a novice, seemed important, because I was focused on just that. And when I got it home, I thought, this piece doesn't work at all. And I had a friend critique it. She goes, well, what are you talking about? Because you're talking about everything. I don't know what the story is here. What do you want me to look at? And I was like, oh, okay, all right. So, you know, you trial and error. So I'm putting some lemon yellow in the back. Lemon is a cool color. Cool colors recede. I want to get this to stay back. I gotta be careful not to touch that. Little lemon, which is also called a brilliant. Little ochre. Try to start setting up this background. I want to really exaggerate that morning light, because along with the piece speaking about the land, I am also want to talk about the light. That morning light is a great support. Now I'm using a warmer, I'm using cad yellow light. I want to warm up the land that's closest to me. And much like oils, if I work efficiently and speedily, they're still wet, so I can muck around with them and get them to move how I want. I do work fast, so that helps a lot. I'm gonna put some ultramarine in those shadows. So it's almost like building, I'm building an underpainting almost, so that I have the values that I need. It's warm in here.
wish we could turn it down, but it doesn't seem to obey.
Well, I teach art therapy, do art therapy in nursing homes, so yeah, I know, I didn't know I was coming to a nursing home,
Yeah.
or,
It's okay, I need a lot of
assisted
therapy, so you're doing a great job.
living. Well, you know,
I'll try.
oh, thank you. I just figured that's the way it was gonna be.
But sometimes it listens to me, sometimes it doesn't, so we'll see.
So I'm really kind of working with undervalues, and I'm keeping in mind that I'm using different warm and cool colors, so that when I do put my overpainting on it, I'll have the base that I want. Now I'm gonna put in that other house. The other house is weird, it's like a Dutch colonial. And every time I've painted it, I've made it too big. It's kind of like when, I'm teaching somebody to draw people, because I do portraiture. And, they always make the eyes huge, because it's the eyes that we connect with. So I'll try to say, try to keep the eyes small, or you're gonna have that face really big on that paper. And inevitably, they do big eyes. I'm trying to find a small brush that will hold the paint how I want, and let me draw edges. Okay, let's see what happens this time.
What brand do you pretty much use for your acrylics?
Well, I'm not a brand snob. So tonight I have, you can look in here. I have some Grumbacher. I have a lot of Galleria. I have a real cheap thing of Reeves. Sometimes I use professional grade, sometimes I use student grade. The only difference that I notice, look, all the pigments are the same no matter what, no matter what color you're getting, the pigment stays consistent. It's the binder that will change through different companies. So, I've found that there's no difference to me when I'm working it. If it has more binder and I need more paint, I put on more paint. So, I am very, prudent with my money. So when you do art for a living, you find ways to live within your means, and one of them is, I don't have to have the, say, Old Holland paints, or the hand crushed ones that some of my friends can afford. I paint a lot, and I go through paint pretty fast, so, tonight I have a lot of Galleria, but I just got an order in from Dick Blick. They had 50% off Grumbacher, so I bought a whole bunch of those, but I was already packed tonight, so I just brought away what I had packed.
Is there any brand you don't like?
No, well, yeah, this here, like, these kind is so cheap, like, this is Reeves. They
Oh.
also have, like, Soho is another brand. It's company's cheapest stuff. This is I even lower than student grade. I wouldn't try acrylic with them, because a lot of times, because there's so much binder and so little pigment, when you paint, you need more and more, and the paint starts to lift off itself. I think Basics, Liquitex has Basics, and I don't care for those either.
No, you don't.
Yeah, they just, do I teach my students with those? Yeah, they're inexpensive. The supplies are included in my, teaching fee,
When
so.
you're first learning, it's okay, naturally, because they have basic stuff,
Right,
but when you're doing pro stuff, you need a quality,
That's it.
decent quality anyhow.
right.
I think Soho is Autorama, right?
I think it is.
Yeah.
Is it Adder? Yeah, it might, I think you're right.
Mm.
I could let this house go and not be obedient to its roof, but I really like the character. And it adds just enough to be different. One of my favorite colors to make is ultramarine blue raw sienna, and titanium. They make a gorgeous gray. You can get it a little greenish or a little blue, but it's just a really pretty color.
Susan, we've also hit 8 o'clock,
Oh,
and just to let you know, we, at some point when you wanna stop, we are going to be having a, what do you call that again?
a break.
A break?
That
One of
would be
those type
great.
things.
Okay, beautiful.
So you, when you get to a point, you just let us know.
I'll just pop this house in and I'll be happy to step away.
You let us know.
I'm sorry, that great gray, you said it was ultramarine blue, what was that again?
Raw sienna. Ultramarine blue and raw sienna, oh my gosh. You can use it for roads, you can use it for, weathered houses that have shakes. You know, those weathered shakes?
Yep.
Oh, it's incredible.
I actually use it for black.
If you put a little, cad red light in it,
Yeah.
you can warm it up. It kinda can, you can make it more greenish, more bluish, it's amazing. The versatility of those colors. It was actually a student that turned me on to that quite a few years back. I'll stop for now.
Okay, and thank you. Everybody can take we say a 10-minute break, we can make it 15 as we usually do, because I know how late you guys get back. So I won't hollywood it, because I can't, I'm not the president, Bill is. However, we have our table on that side that has all these wonderful little treats. Please get up and enjoy yourselves a little bit, stretch the legs, okay? We'll be back in a short while. Thank you.